Hey, welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and I did not mean for this to turn into a two-part video, but my mom came home, and I went to help her unload the car and everything, and so I just decided to end the update video and just leave that one update. And this part 2 is going to be talking about my potential reads for springtime, which I explained my struggles with TBRs and stuff, and why I go back and forth about wanting to do a TBR, not wanting to do a TBR in the previous video. But like I said, I get excited making these lists of books that I potentially want to read. It's just, I see all the books I haven't read, and I'm just, I keep adding on to that list. So I'm trying to restrict it, as I said in the introduction to the last video, to my reading projects. And I'm also gonna show you, as I also mentioned in that video in the introduction, that I've hauled some books. And I also made a thrift books order, so I cannot show you those books. And what I might do is, when I finally get those books, hopefully I'll have some updates for you guys with my reading progress. And I will just show you those books in a video that's also an update on my reading, my current reading. That's what I like to try to do, so I can, show off what I purchased, but also have another reason to make a video, not just to haul books. And I think that makes me feel a little less guilty, because I still feel I'm worried that people are gonna, people are thinking I'm hauling books all the time, and I do go to the bookshop a lot. I'm trying to at least have weeks in between before I go do any more bookshop visits and getting books. But anyway, so let's show you. First, I will show you the books I'm thinking about reading for spring. Okay, so let's see, where's my reread? Do I have a reread? Let me show you my rereads first. Okay, so last year, in the second half of the year, I read The Plantagenets, The Warrior Kings and Queens Who Made England by Dan Jones, and I want to reread this and annotate it. This is the history of the Plantagenet dynasty before the Tudors, so this was right before King Henry VIII. And his father is the one who started the Tudor dynasty, and the Plantagenet dynasty ended with Richard III, because Henry VII kicked Richard III's ass, unfortunately. And I guess it depends on what side you're on, if it's unfortunate or not, but it's unfortunate for him. I mean, it's pretty brutal from what I heard, the Battle of Bosworth and what they did to his body after they killed him. But they had some interesting kings and queens from what I remember reading this book last year. This is King John from Robin Hood Legend and Richard the Lionheart are part of this dynasty. So they're the ones I was most familiar with. I do have a Richard III biography that I also want to read, but I forgot to grab it. So I'm also... Actually, it might be here. I don't know. I don't see it, actually. So I don't see it. But I do want to read that one, too. And I think I should probably read that one before I read the Henry VII biography, which is The Winter King. Because I was thinking, there's winter in the title, so I'll read this winter, and I did not get around to it. But I think I should read the Richard III biography first. So that's another one I want to read, but I don't have it here, I don't think. But yeah, so I want to reread this one and annotate it. And maybe read a little bit more about these guys. I did attempt to, when I read this last year, I did attempt to read and to annotate a little bit, but when it comes to me and annotating, I'm just like, I just want to read the book. And I get lazy about it, because then I have to, what do I what do I say? How do I annotate? I have watched a lot of videos on how to do it, and at the end of the day, just whatever thought comes to your head. But a lot of people say that underlining and highlighting doesn't do anything, and so I just don't know what to do. So I'm just gonna, but what I'm gonna do is just write notes as I read in a notebook, and then highlight, and I'm still gonna highlight and underline and make little comments here and there. And I do talk to my dad, who's a history guy too, a history buff too. And I mean, he's the reason I like history, probably. And I'm gonna talk to him. And it really helps because my mom really appreciates, I've talked to her about stuff that I've learned. And she's very enthusiastic and supportive because she's like, oh, I'm learning new things. But so I'll talk to her and my parents about as I read. But I want to read, so yeah, I want to do this one. And let's see, do I have any other, where are my other, trying to think of, and another reread is Beren and Luthien. I just finished The Silmarillion, and for February, and I'm gonna do a wrap up of my winter reads in a few weeks. Because technically spring doesn't start until March 20th. So halfway through March, I'll do my winter reads wrap up, or I mean maybe sooner than that. We'll see. But I read this last spring, and after I read the Silmarillion, and it explains what happens in this story, it kind of helps me understand it a little better, because I'm still kind of struggling to learn how to read and comprehend epic poetry. And I do enjoy it because it's a story, and it's more like reading a story, basically like reading a novel, but in a poem format. And there were times, I admit, there were times when I was a little confused about what was going on. So I'm gonna try it again, and then maybe once I finish it, maybe I can write a better review for this, because I did type up a review and everything, and I did post a review, but I think maybe I can write a better review once I read it the second time. And sometimes, they say reading a book more than once, you get even more than you got the first time you read it. So I want to reread this one. This is a Tolkien's love story, and in fact, this one was inspired by his wife Edith, and on her tombstone is the name Luthien, and then on his tombstone is Beren. But so this is the mortal immortal love story that was way before Aragorn and Arwen. Beren is a mortal man who sees Luthien and becomes enchanted with her as she's dancing. They fall in love. He goes to her father, King Thingol, the elf king of, I don't know which elves, because there's actually multiple elves. There's the gray elves, there's the green elves. And he goes to, I want to marry your daughter, and Thingol laughs in his face. Doesn't have a very high opinion of the man, and is like, alright, you can marry my daughter if you can get me the Silmaril off Morgoth's crown. So he goes on a quest. And all the shenanigans of quest happens. He almost gets killed a couple times and has to fight all these monsters, and there's spiders in there, and there's werewolves, and in fact there's a lot more animals in this story than in the original Lord of the Rings. So I am excited to reread this. I mean, I might save until April, because that's what I read the first time. Maybe just read it in April again this year to my reread. No, but I don't know. I might want to, because by then I might, forget and get lazy about it if I wait too long. But we'll see. And then I also want to reread. I want to start my reread of Assassin's Apprentice, which technically I've already started reading. I read the first chapter. This was a book, not this visit, but a previous visit to my grandma's. I brought it with me and read a little bit of it. Only, like I said, only the first chapter. This Robin Hobb is a very popular author in fantasy circles. I mean, not everybody loves her work, and a lot of people get annoyed with the main character in this particular trilogy. But I remember way back when, hearing about this book, and this is one of those books that I wonder if I was slightly influenced by BookTube and hyping it up. And I as much as I'd like to believe that I don't get influenced by hype, I think I do to some extent. Because there are times when I hear so many people talking about how great this book is, and they're like, everyone's gonna love this, you have to read it, and like the Emma M. Lyon series, which I think Emma M. Lyon series is probably really great and a beautiful story, and it sounds very Victorian or Austen-esque or something, or like Bridgerton. But I almost get kind of annoyed when they just assume you're gonna love that everyone loves it, even though a lot of people do love it, and everyone who reads it automatically falls in love with the story, supposedly. So I'm almost like, no, I don't want to read it because I might not love it. I mean, I probably would like it, but... So that's, so I like, every time I hear people say how they think everybody's gonna love it, I'm like, you don't know that. I mean, it's great that you're excited and that you love it and think it's awesome, and all your friends love it, but there's no guarantee that every single person you present the book to is gonna love it. I don't think there's any one book that every person in the universe loves it. But, so yeah, I think I do get a little influenced by hype. And I just want to read this without that influence too strongly, because now it's been some time, and it's not, it's not like people don't love it anymore, but it's not as widely talked about series. I mean, I'm still gonna love it probably, because fantasy's my jam, and I'm not saying that when I read it before, I was only liking it just because. I mean, I genuinely liked it, but I kind of want to look at it from a less popular angle, just by my own thoughts and feelings on it. And it's also been so long. Like, a lot of times I reread books because it's been such a long time since I read them the first time that I want to refresh my memory. Because I liked it before, and I want to, see how I feel the second time around. So, this is about young Fitz. He is the bastard of one of the princes of this world. And his father dies. And his father's father, the king, claims Fitz. But he knows that because Fitz is a bastard, that's, he can't really claim him as an heir. So he passes him off to the stable hand Burrich. And also he passes him to the spy master, the court assassin, Shade. And they both kind of raise Fitz. And Fitz also has the family power, which is the, I cannot remember does it say it on here? Okay, so it doesn't say what it's called. I don't remember what the magic that their family has. The skill. Yeah, right. So it is the skill. It's called the skill. He has that power, but he also has another power. He has the wit, which means you can get into the mind and bond with animals. But people are afraid of the wit because if it becomes too strong, you can become more beast than man. And so Fitz has both those powers, and it's him about kind of learning how to use those powers and control them, and dealing with the prejudice against the wit, and having to grow up in this world where he is a bastard, and the struggles of the role he plays in this family. And there is a little bit of romance, although the book starts when he's 6. He's a little kid at the time. And so we're growing up with Fitz throughout the trilogy, and I think that's part of why it's so annoying, because he's a kid, and kids can be... I mean, I love kids as much as the next person, but he can be annoying, because he is a kid, and kids can be annoying. But anyway, and I've actually been collecting, obviously I've been trying to get these versions of the books, because I originally had the mass markets, and you guys know my whole thing about mass markets, so that's another reread I want to read this spring. And then last is Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. And as you guys know, the latest adaptation of this book just came out. It's Margot Robbie starring as Kathy, and Jacob Elordi is Heathcliff. And this has resulted in people not being happy with the adaptation, and then the other people deciding to go see it and either enjoy it or just having mixed opinions on the latest adaptation. So this is once again created quite a stir in the book community, and I thought I would reread it myself, and I've been meaning to reread it ever since I bought another copy of it, because originally I got it from the library, and wanting to, read it and then annotate it. But it's such an interesting book. It has such strong opinions. You can either love it and think it's brilliant and understand as best you can what Emily Bronte was trying to do, or you're pissed, you hate it, and you think this is not a love story, it's not romantic, it's terrible and very toxic. Those are the two camps. You're either in the camp where people who love it and think it's brilliant and understand the dark themes of it and the dark, or you are the person who just doesn't understand the darkness and doesn't appreciate that it's being promoted as this epic romance when it's very messed up and about revenge and obsession, which it is, but it's also it's a very complicated book, and I would love to know there's no way of knowing because she's been long dead and you can't raise the dead, but I would love to know what Emily Bronte thinks of all the strong opinions. Maybe she just will be happy that people have strong opinions on the book. But so yeah, I've been meaning to reread it and then annotate it. So those are all my rereads. And then we have, so first, let's talk Tolkien Project. So this is one I don't expect to finish, but I want to start reading it, is The Letters of J.R.R. Tolkien. It's all of his letters, exchanged between his editor, his agent, his wife, the letters. I don't know if it has the Father Christmas letters in this one, but it's the expanded and revised edition too. So I want to just read these, not, obviously I'm not going to finish, but I want to read maybe a couple a day or something. But I think it'd be really fun to read Tolkien's letters. And then I think another let's see. So there's that, Tolkien's letters. I want to read that. I need to stop because, I saw Steve Donahue's. I remember a while back seeing Steve Donahue's videos about how it doesn't look good when you're just moving your hand around, shaking the book around. It's unprofessional, so I know I need to stop doing that. I just need to hold the book in front of the screen. So I'm going to try starting now. Okay, and then we have The Adventures of Tom Bombadil by Tolkien. And I thought this would be perfect for springtime. First of all, it's a green cover. And it's an adventure. I think when I think adventure, I think springtime is a great time to read adventure books. And I've been meaning to read this, and I think this is one of the Tolkien books that Harrison could read. I don't think he's ready for Lord of the Rings, but I think he could read this one. He's already read The Hobbit, so I think this one he could read as well. And there's a couple other books like Father Ham, I think, or Father Giles Ham or something like that. But this is everyone's favorite character in Lord of the Rings that was not included in the movie adaptation. A lot of people think he should have been. But if he's all powerful, then I think that could potentially ruin the story, because it's an all-powerful being in the story would automatically, although they say that, he wouldn't care about the ring because he's too powerful, and it would seem weak, just a little trinket to him, it wouldn't matter, but who wants all the problems to be solved with someone just throwing the ring away? That's not a story. That would be the shortest story on the planet. Um, but I don't know a lot about Tom Bombadil. I mean, I read The Lord of the Rings, as you guys know. I read physically in January, in February, in the beginning of February. But I still, like, I just, but anyway, I want to read it. But either way, I still want to read this book. I think it'll be fun to read more about this character because he's a fun character. And like I said, I think this would also be a good, I could see for sure if this would be a good book for Harrison to read, my nephew. But, so I'm gonna read that one. And then one that's a little less fun and a little bit more depressing is The Children of Hurin. And this was another one that was brought up in the Silmarillion. They explain what happens in this one. And this one is sad and depressing. I mean, people have talked about this one and explained what this one is about, or at least given hints. So I kind of had some idea, but like, I didn't know the exact plot of this. And now I actually do. But I want to read it. I want to read this copy of it. Because I bought it, so every book I buy, my intention is to read them. So there is that one. I want to read this one as well. And then we have The Unfinished Tales of Numenor and Middle-earth, which I'm not going to read all this either, just as the letters. I'm not going to all read all the letters either. This, I think, is a collection of short stories of, again, Middle-earth and Numenor, one of the fallen cities. And like I said, I think this would be another fun one to read. Like, read a handful of these stories in this. But again, I don't expect to finish it. I just want to start reading some of these. And then I have one more nonfiction. And that is The Philosophy of Tolkien by Peter J. Kreeft. This is, as it says, it's about Tolkien's philosophy of life. Tolkien was a Christian. He was a very religious man. You know, his books were about good and evil and good triumphing over evil and such. And like some of the behind the scenes featurette for The Return of the King that I have, I remember they talked about like his eucatastrophe theory, where everything is falling apart and the world seems to be coming to an end, but then all of a sudden in this moment of triumph where good defeats evil, and like, which the opposite of catastrophe. But I think this will be really fun and interesting to read his philosophical beliefs and how it relates to his work. So my two non-fictions for the Tolkien Project are The Philosophy of Tolkien and The Letters of Tolkien. Okay, and then we have my medieval project. Like I said, I want to read the biography of Richard III, and there's also a historical fiction book that I bought the last time I visited the Outpost Bookshop, and it was the author's take on Richard III, but kind of doing more, showing a different side to Richard III because he has a bad reputation. So she's giving him a second life and a chance to like redefine and open up, put Richard III into a more positive light. I don't remember what the book is called, but that is what reminded me that I want to read Richard III soon. So that one, I'm going to read that one as well, and then the historical fiction book. But also, I want to do Alison Weir's take on the War of the Roses, because I read Dan Jones's book, the sequel to The Plantagenets. This is another historian's take on the War of the Roses. She is the one that wrote the Six Tudor Queens series, and I have a couple other books by her. And So I wanted to read her take on the War of the Roses as well, which, I mean, it'll be a lot of the same information, but a different person, a different historian's viewpoint on the subject. I think will be really interesting to compare the two. And then another biography I wanted to check into is Mary Queen of Scots, Antonia Fraser biography. She also wrote the Marie Antoinette biography, and I think she wrote the book that I got also on King Henry VIII and his wives. I have a book on that as well. But my dad brought up going to Scotland. And this year, we might do it. I don't know how, because I feel like you got to plan way in advance for those kinds of trips. But he said, because I think he wants to take some trips before he has his knee surgery, his second knee surgery. Fortunately, my dad and mom are in their 60s now, and my dad, he's an athletic person, and his knees are starting to, not work as good anymore. So he had surgery on one knee, and then he's going to have surgery on his next knee on 2027 is the plan at the beginning of 2027. So he wants to take a couple trips before that happens, because then he'll be on a commission for a period of time. So that reminded me of this, that I asked for this book for Christmas and received it, if you've seen, and I figured, why not read, maybe I should read this now. And this was, also inspired by the Rest is History podcast, because they did the first series of episodes I watched, theirs was their take on Mary Queen of Scots. And there is another book also about her, but it focuses on the murder of Darnley. I can't remember his first name, but her husband, the man that she married. So I already know a little bit about her, like how Lord Darnley, that's her husband's name. Well, I mean, Lord isn't his first name, but you guys. But I think she's from the Senate, but she sounds very sympathetic and really struggled with the job as queen. Like, she made some bad decisions, apparently. I mean, according to the Rest is History podcast. Like, it sucks being queen sometimes, I think. Okay, and then also we have the one fiction book that I have is, I want to go ahead and read this is the third book in Alison Weir's take on the Six Tudor Queens series. It's about Jane Seymour, the third wife. I think she's the one who ended up, she actually gave him a son, but she sadly died. And I don't think the son lasted that long. I think he died at a young age too. And, I feel like I know, even though I haven't read any nonfiction about Catherine of Aragon or Anne Boleyn, I feel like you hear so much more about them, and learn so much more about those two wives, because Catherine of Aragon, she's the first wife, and was started the Reformation indirectly. She stole Henry from Catherine, and she's the mother of Queen Elizabeth I. So I feel like you hear a lot about them, and even more about Anne Boleyn. So I'm excited to read this, because I don't know anything about Jane Seymour. Okay, so that is my medieval. Like I said, also Richard III is part of that. Okay, and then we have this is my 2 series. I might also include for that T-bar. I mean, this book might be saved, but for the summer, or but the third book in the Song of Ice and Fire series by George R. R. Martin, I still have to finish reading the books, because I had read the first 2 books years and years ago, around the time, and because I wanted to read the books before I ever watched the show, or and then I watched the show and I got caught up in it and just did not pick up the books even though I kept saying I would. So finally I reread the first 2 books, and I've only gone halfway through book 3, and not because I wasn't intrigued by it or interested in it. It's just I got sidetracked by like, oh, I'll just watch the show. So I got halfway through that book and then put it down, and then, like I said, I reread the first 2 books. I think I've read the first book, A Game of Thrones, 3 times now. I read A Clash of Kings twice, and Storm of Swords I've only read half of it. So I want to read Storm of Swords and actually finish it. And then go to like Feast of Crows, I think, is the next one. And fortunately, it's a series that George R. R. Martin has not finished, and I know a lot of people are like, why? I don't want to read this book. But I agree with this series, I should say. But I kind of agree with the previous people. You know, I agree with some of the other half of the fans that are like, it's still an amazing series, and it's still the journey is still enjoyable and fun. Like, don't let the 2 idiots that were writing the show, that, you know, were the showrunners, David and Dan, don't let them ruin, because, you know, you can be like, oh, those last handful of seasons tainted the show and ruined it for me. But it's like, no, it doesn't, objectively speaking, it doesn't change that the previous handful of seasons, I mean, and I don't remember when it really went bad, at least not for me. I don't even know when it went bad for a lot of people, but like, at least the first 3 or 4 seasons were objectively good. And I think it's a little silly, but this is just my opinion, and I'm not trying to be like, how dare you. But for me, I just don't agree with the people who are like, oh, it's ruined the show forever. I can't watch the show. For me, I could still watch it. Like, I mean, yeah, right now I haven't watched it since the beginning. I mean, I did attempt to start once, and you know what? But I still want to read the books, and then maybe I'll do a rewatch of the show. Because I still wouldn't rewatch it. I just haven't felt motivated, and it's not because, oh, those last couple seasons were awful. I mean, I agree, they were rushed, and they were not great, but I think but it doesn't taint the whole show, at least for me, and, you know, I'm that camp of people who still love the show and the journey and the book, so I'm gonna keep reading the series, even if he never finishes. It's not gonna, I mean, I'll be disappointed, but I'll still have enjoyed the show, and I can always have a fan fiction in my head of how things worked out. Although that's a lot. I don't know how good, like, I'm better when it's a simple plot. Like, I can do fan fiction of, you know, something like Once Upon a Time, where even though it's still kind of convoluted, but it's a smaller scale than Game of Thrones. But anyway, so yeah, there's that. But here's some other series that I want to get to. I just have to read the last book in this series, The Lost Metal. And then, as I showed in the previous video, this is another series I need to finish, and I already started it. That is the Under the Northern Sky trilogy. But this is, Wax and Wayne. And I just realized the other day that Wax and Wayne, that's what a lot of people say when it comes to cleaning their cars and stuff. Or when they're like the moon or waxing and waning, you know, I didn't even think about that with their names. But, yeah, this is the 4th book, and I'll be done with that series. So, there's that one. So, I gotta get to this one, and this one it's very easy to read these. They're very fast-paced. Very different than the first trilogy. So there's that one. And then the other series is Wall of Storms, the 2nd book. And this was a situation where, like, so we went, right before we went to London a couple years ago, my dad, he has written a couple books. He's an author. He's written Shadows of Saigon, which is a Vietnam story. I mean, I'm looking back on his time in the Vietnam War. And there is a romance, a love story. He meets the love of his life. She's a Vietnamese woman, and also his life in high school. his coming of age. And my dad also wrote another coming of age type story called Sage Among the Pines, which is about a girl who her dad was military. He died. He had died in Iraq. It was just her and her mom. Her mom became an alcoholic and depressed, and her mom did not get along. And her mom decides, knowing she needs to go to rehab, sends her away to live with her grandparents, who own a ranch. And I don't think I mentioned that her dad died. Her dad ended up dying in a helicopter crash, actually. And it's all about her growing up on the farm, on the ranch, and learning about life's lessons. And, going to high school and making friends in a new place. And there are also some things that her mom has not told her, secrets that she's keeping about, the relationship between her mom and her dad. So, it's a coming of age story. And he's actually working on another one as we speak. But, with his surgery, his knee problems and his surgery hasn't felt like writing. It's been a little bit harder to concentrate on writing his third book. But anyway, so we went to our independent bookstore where he had a little author event. And while we were there, I was like, can I do some book shopping while you're... So while that was going on, I did some book shopping, and I got the third book in this series. And my uncle who was going to babysit Murphy while we were gone, came with me, and I was kind of talking about how my series and how, unfortunately, because it, like, at the independent bookstore, it's similar prices to Books A Million, so I have to get them, and there's no membership there, so I have to get the books one at a time. And when we got back from our trip, he surprised me and got the fourth book for me. So I had all the books in the series. I had no excuse, and I still have not returned to book 2. I mean, in my defense, I've read a good chunk of it. And I feel bad because he did ask me about it when the next time we visited my grandma after our trip. And I had to say that, yeah, I started book 1, but I haven't finished it, the finished series. And I felt really bad because he got me all the books. And I talked about how it was important to me to collect all the books. And, so I want to get to this one as well this spring. And, ideally I would love to give to book 3, but we'll see what happens. Because I do get distracted easily. And this would go in my Asian project as well as my series project. So, there's that. Now, let's go ahead and tell you about my Asian project, the rest of them. So we have, first of all, for the Japanese, I decided to pick this one for my spring read, and the other one I recently purchased, Kokoro. That's going to be my autumnal book because it's actually a professor looking back. So I thought, that kind of feels more academia type. This is a man who's traveling, trekking around, the world, or meandering walking tour in the mountains. And he is a artist, and he meets all this wide variety of different people, including this woman, Naomi. And she's very beautiful, and he falls in love with her. So I thought this would be great for spring. I think romance, if I read romance regularly, that would be a spring. I would read romance in the springtime. So this felt more like a spring book than the other one, Kokoro. So I'm going to read this. And this is Japanese, by the way. And then we have, so this was a book I actually got from BJ's, and I'm trying to, go through all those books and read those because I've been buying them and I haven't gotten to some of them yet. So, this is one of the first books I got when BJ's was built. in our community. So this takes place in the 1800s, during which for some reason I was thinking the 50s, but and this is during the time when, you know, women could get shanghaied, as they call it, where, according to the back description, shanghaied victim on the verge of being shipped off as forced labor, something like that. But this woman who is half Chinese gets taken. Excuse me. Oh, I'm so sorry. Excuse me. Kidnapped and taken, and becomes a bit of a slave, I think. But this seemed really engaging, and I want to get into Chinese literature. Now, this isn't a classic, this is a more modern book, but I'm going to try to get into more Chinese literature. As well as Japanese and Filipino. I mean, Filipino is my main concern. But I want to read all Asian culture, about all Asian cultures. So there's that. There's those two, and then we have another Japanese, which this I heard from Tristan in the Classics. The Meikoki sisters. This is set see, the price tag gets in the way, but either right before World War II or right after World War II. It's about this family of sisters, and one of them has to get married to save the family fortune because they are broke. They are not doing well financially. And one of the and it says the eldest refuses to compromise her values, but is worn down by money problems and finally forced to move with her husband to Tokyo. But it's like a family drama, and like I said, this was one of the books that I started. I think it was back in the beginning of January. I brought it with me to my grandma's and read it because it was her birthday, and this was one of the ones I brought with me. So I read the first 6 chapters of this. So I definitely need to return to this one. And I remember liking it so far. It's just I got distracted. And then the last one is a more recent, the Christmas of 2024. Well, actually, I got part 2 for Christmas, but this is part 1 of. Actually, I might have got part 2 in 2025 Christmas, and part 1 in 2024 Christmas. But this is Shogun Part 1. It's now been adapted twice, actually. A more recent adaptation done by FX, which is a TV show, and they're now doing another season. It was also made into a miniseries in the 90s, I believe. But this is about a British... where is it? He's a British sailor. John Blackthorne is lost at sea, and he ends up in feudal Japan, not realizing where he is, and becomes part of this culture and has to adapt and live here in Japan. And it has a lot of other books. It is a series. And I think it's one of those series where it's like the whole Japan throughout the years. Like this first one takes place in the 1800s, and then the rest of the series takes place in different times in Japan's history, I think. So I want to read part 1 this spring. Okay, so that's my Asian. And then along with Wall of Storms. And then we have, so these are just some random books I meant to read. So Shakespeare's The Tempest, I want to get to. I keep meaning to get it. I meant to get it to in the autumn. And actually that reminds me of another one that I meant to get to in the autumn was Dante's Divine Comedy, so that's one I should probably consider picking up soon. Because I keep saying that I will consider it, and then I never do. So maybe I'm jinxing myself here, but that's another one I want to. I just don't have it. I forgot to grab it. But I've been told that this is one of his harder plays. But it is a fantasy, like A Midsummer's Night Dream is fantasy. I think it's a sorcerer on an island, and he has a sister, and stuff like that. And it was adapted with starring Helen Mirren, and I always forget his name. He's the actor, the comedian. He dated Katy Perry for a while before Orlando Bloom. I can picture him. He has long black hair, looks like a rock star, the cliche. He was in Forgetting Sarah Marshall, British. I cannot remember his name. I wish I could. And there's another one where he did where his character from Forgetting Sarah Marshall is in he has to make it to his concert, and he's kind of one of those typical rock stars who drinks a lot, parties a lot, and this guy has to basically escort him, like get him to the Greek? Is that the movie? I don't know. I can't remember his name. I mean, it's gonna, as soon as I stop thinking about it, it's gonna pop in my head, the guy's name. But yeah, he was also, I bring him up because he was in the adaptation for The Tempest. So I mean, really, this would be a good summer read, but because of the setting, I think ocean and on an island is very summer to me. But I would start it now, so I don't keep putting it off. I mean, it's the same with the Divine Comedy. I can't keep putting it off, so. And then we have Buddenbrooks by Thomas Mann. So this is another family saga story. And it actually inspired the purchase of Giants in the Earth, because I like the idea of family saga stories, but I haven't actually read them. So I want to actually read family sagas and to see if I generally do like them. Because, I mean, I like them in TV show format, so I need to actually see if I like them in books. And I actually, at the time, I really wanted to get Thomas Mann's Magic Mountain, but I kept putting it off, even when I did see it, and then I wasn't seeing it at the used bookstore. And of course, I wasn't going to buy it at Books A Million, which I would have more luck probably finding it there. And I didn't want to necessarily order it online. I just wanted to just keep an eye out at the bookstore. Maybe eventually I would order it online. And then I bought this one. And I figured, let me read this first. If I can't read Magic Mountain, I can at least read a different book by Thomas Mann. And Emmy, on the channel Emmy, like Emmy Reads or something. I don't know what her channel is actually called, but I just see Emmy on the name of her channel. And she read Magic Mountain with Caroline Marie Reads in their book club, and they talked about how great it was, how much they loved it. But I was like, but I got Buddenbrooks, and I don't want to read the book just, I don't want to read that one first, the Magic Mountain. I just wanted to read this first because because like that would be influenced by them potentially. So I started this one, and then I found the exact same edition of Magic Mountain at the bookstore weeks ago, at the end of last year. So I bought it, and then I was like, oh, but I should read this one first, Buddenbrooks, and then read that one. So I want to read this one this spring as well. It's the decline of the family. So it's a family saga story, but it's a decline of a family saga story. Anyway. And then we have Poldark, Ross Poldark. So you guys know the story. Like, Terry had got into it first, and then I saw my parents were watching the show, and so I finally decided to get all the books. And I slowly have been collecting them. There is one more book that I don't have from the series, and that's the 4th book in the series. So either I'm going to get it for my birthday or just keep an eye on it. Or maybe, like I said, next time if I order books off of the books before my birthday, then I might order that one. Because that's what I was trying to do for these next previous shopping days, is get books that I really wanted, in the moment, and also books that were part of series where it's a book I've been meaning to get, but I haven't found at the bookstore. So, I haven't even seen these books at Books a Million. I mean, maybe the first one, but not the rest of the series. So, I have most of the books except for the one. Fortunately, that one has not been at Outpost Bookshop. So, this is the first book, and it is the tie-in TV show tie-in edition starring, I cannot remember what his name is, but he plays Killy in the Hobbit movies. It's Aiden something. I don't... Aiden Turner, that's what it is. Last time I attempted to film this, I couldn't remember the name either. I knew it was Aiden something. Well, now I do remember. It's Aiden Turner. So this is... Our young man is Ross Poldark. He has just come home from what we in America see as the American Revolution. For England, it's another war. And he has come home because, of course, we defeated England and became a separate nation. And he comes home to find that his dad has died. The love of his life, the woman he wanted to marry, the love of his life, Elizabeth, has married his cousin, Francis. And his family fortune is not doing too hot. And his dad's servants stay loyal, waiting for him. In fact, they were living in the house, and that's probably because they had nowhere to go. And it's about him having to start over and rebuild his family's fortune. And and I do know from the back description, he does meet another woman who I think he saves her life. Like she's being assaulted or something. And so I'm at the point where he got invited to Elizabeth, his previous lover, his previous fiance, her and Francis, his cousin's wedding. He didn't want to go, but they convinced him to go, kind of guilt trip him, because he's being a little petty about it, because he's pretty hurt by it. And another thing I've noticed is that the woman who would have been his mother-in-law does not like him. I think she prefers Francis. Although some of her, she's doing everything in power to keep Ross and Elizabeth from talking and interacting with each other. And to some extent, in a small way, I kind of understand, because Elizabeth is marrying Francis. So he shouldn't be spending time with another man. Because even today, when friends of the opposite sex are friends, and they have a partner, then the other person can get a little jealous and feel threatened if you have someone that's the opposite sex as a friend. And it can be a little uncomfortable because I think Billy Crystal was right to an extent that sex can get in the way. Because, not that you're attracted to every, person of the opposite sex. You're not attracted to everybody who you're friends with, but I think it can make things complicated and make the other person insecure. But so back then it would be even more inappropriate for Elizabeth to be friends with Ross. So at least in that way, she would it would be okay for her to be polite to him and be friendly to an extent, but not be alone with another man, especially if she's married. Either way, whether she's married or not. But anyway, we have not met the other woman yet, who Demelza, I don't know her name, but I know she's coming because I know what happens in this book. I don't know exactly what happens, but I know the plot from the back, and I've caught a couple glimpses of the show, and my parents watch it. So, and there are 12 books in the series, so I have 11 books. And then we have the last book I want to mention is before I show you the books I've recently hauled, is Fairy Tale. So my original plan was to read it either in winter or autumn. I didn't get around to it. I did start reading the Talisman, but that feels like a summer book to me. Don't ask me why, it just does. And then I do have to read Wizard of Glass, so that's another book from a series that I need to get to as well. So so that one, consider that a potential as well. But Fairy Tale, I think, would be great for spring. I think it is good for both spring and winter. I don't know why, like I said. So I think it would be good just to, get me going at least, getting me back into the groove. I mean, although last year I read 2 Stephen King books, I still did not pick up any. I only picked up those 2 Stephen King books. I just want to get to the point where I can automatically pick up a Stephen King book without it, and pick more than, I want to get to the point where I pick up more than 2 Stephen King books during the year. Put it that way. So yeah. So Wizard of Glass, and then Fairy Tale are the 2 Stephen King books I need to read this year. Okay, so now let's show you guys my haul. And like I said, I have 3 more books coming, but I don't have them. So again, hopefully I'll have an update when those books come. And I can just do an update and show you those books. Okay, so that was the book. So like I said, I again got 4 books. Because at the time I was hoping that I would have my, $5 off, but I didn't. I mean, I really probably should have put one away, but it was kind of like I couldn't decide. So first we have, again, I'm kind of on World War One kick. So I got this, The Good Soldier. So at the fashionable German spa town Bad Nauheim, 2 wealthy Sicilian couples, one British, the other American, meet for their yearly assignation. As their story moves back and forth in time between 1902 and 1914, the fragile surface propriety of the pre-World War I society in which these 4 characters live is ruptured, revealing deceit, hatred, and infidelity and betrayal. The Good Soldier is Edward Ashburnham, who, as an adherent to the moral code of English upper class, is nonetheless consumed by a passion for a woman younger than his wife, a stoic but fallible figure in what his American friend John Dowell calls the saddest story I ever heard. So it was either between this or there was also a Philippa Gregory book that was set post World War I, set in the 1920s. But I figured I'll stick to the Philippa Gregory books that I already have, which are the Plantagenet series, and then I have the first book and a couple for trilogies. Of course, that one will probably disappear. I should take a picture of that. I totally forgot. I should have taken a picture so I could look for it on. But what I can do is, you know how on authors, if they have a lot of books they've written over the years, then they will have listed those books inside of their books. There are other books that you do have, or I can go online and look them up. So I just decided to go with the classic. That is a pre-World War I story. So there's that. And then, so this one, I already have a copy of it, but I have a hardback copy. And it's like, the bigger the book is, the harder, the least I like hardback copies of books. And so is the woman who just showed you a copy of the Fairy Tale, which is a hardback book, and it's a chunky book because it's Stephen King. And I've been tempted to buy for Books A Million some Stephen King, but of that one and some of his other books that I have, like Sleeping Beauties and I go back and forth with 12263. But anyway, this is The Bee Sting, another family story, but set in Ireland. And I think something happens, event of a bee sting. Okay, let me just read the back, because I don't remember the premise. The Barnes family are in trouble. Until recently, they ran the biggest business in town. Now they're teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, and that's just the start of their problems. Dickie and Imelda's marriage is hanging by a thread. Straight-A student Cass is careening off the rails. PJ is hopelessly in debt to the school bully, and meanwhile, the past is rising up to meet them by everyone's too wrapped up in the present to notice distance looming, or disaster looming. And I think a bee sting, like as the title, there's something to do with bee sting. Oh, that's why this is a different cover. This is the British, the UK. Yay! I got a UK cover one. Because it's because the only way I can get the UK cover books is to get them online, or I got some UK cover books when we went to London. I ended up getting 2, although now I wish I just got 1. But I ended up not having time to go to the bookstore in Bath. I mean, I wish I could have, but anyway. But yeah, this is the UK cover, because I remember the cover of Books A Million that I've seen it's blue. It's a little bit bigger than this. It's blue with pink. The cover is pink, or the typography is pink, like the words, and the cover itself, the book itself, is blue. So I was like, oh, that's different. I wonder. But yeah, I just realized, because it has the UK price sticker. I mean, it's the UK price. It doesn't have the US covers. US books often have the the US price, the UK price, and then the Canadian price. But this one only has the UK price. So, and I think this is UK cover. So that is really exciting, actually, and I think this fits it better, because Beast. The title says the bee sting, and yellow and black are with the bee, and there's a bee right there, so it makes sense then. So I'm excited for that. Yay, I got the UK cover, a UK edition. So then we have, another World War I. So this is the World War I book that I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning of this video, or if I mentioned in my video where I update you guys on my current reads, but I saw this in at the Outpost bookshop. There weren't a lot of World War I books. There was a lot of World War II books, and there were some American Revolution books, and some on the war in the Middle East and Vietnam and all the other wars, and then there was a section of military shelves, military books, and then there was the one that's other parts of the world that aren't history on other parts of the world that aren't war related, and European history and all that. And I often go to that shelf, but that's all in the vault. But yeah, I actually think it's smart that they moved most of the nonfiction to the vault, because that's a little bit. I mean, it's a small space, but it's bigger than where they had it before, which was a shelf against the wall near the cash register. But then they moved some of the biographies to that one. All the biographies are over there, and then the rest of the nonfiction is in the vault. But they didn't have a lot of World War I stuff, but finally they had a little bit today, so I ended up grabbing this one, which it wasn't in the military shelf. It was actually in the, like I said, it was in the World War I section, which got me really excited. This is The Myth of the Great War by John Mosier. How the Germans won the battles and how the Americans saved the Allies. So let me read the back. Forbes says, this intriguing book tells that the British and the French convinced themselves World War I that they were doing just fine on the battlefields. Only the timely participation of the United States saved Paris, and in the months hereafter enabled the Allies to win the war. Based on the previously unused French and German sources, this challenging, controversial new analysis of the war on the Western Front from 1914 to 1918 reveals how and why the Germans won the major battles, with 1/2 to 1/3 fewer casualties than the Allies, and how American troops in 1918 saved the Allies from the defeat and negotiated peace with the Germans. So this is exciting. I was very happy to see finally some World War I books. Because I've only seen like encyclopedias, and then there was, one other book there. And then I didn't see anything there after that visit. And then this visit, thankfully I saw this. And there still wasn't a lot. I mean, there was still barely anything there of World War I. Like, World War II dominates that vault. But anyway. So the last book was either between this one and then there was a Walt Disney, not a biography, but another type of book on Walt Disney, but I already had the Neil Gabler one and I still have not finished that one. That was the first Christmas we were here. I got that one, so that one I need to finish that one. And it was between the other Walt Disney nonfiction book biography, and then there was this one, which I saw there last time, which is a book on a biography on Da Vinci. And this author was someone that I have his book on Benjamin Franklin, which I'm wondering if he has a theme on the type of people he writes about, because he wrote about Steve Jobs, it looks like, and Einstein. So I'm guessing Walter Isaacson has a thing for inventors, writing biographies about famous inventors and creative people. So, because if you know anything about Da Vinci, he's not just the painter, but he also invented a flying contraption, and he had a bunch of other things he invented, which I don't know what they are, but I know he invented a lot of things. Okay, so the author of the acclaimed book bestsellers on Steve Jobs, Albert Einstein, and Benjamin Franklin. Oh, yep, Benjamin Franklin. I had that one. Brings Leonardo da Vinci to life in this exciting new biography, drawing on the thousands of pages from Leonardo's astonishing notebooks and new discoveries about his life and work. Walter Isaacson weaves a narrative that connects his art to his science. He shows how Leonardo's genius was based on skills we could improve in ourselves, such as a passionate curiosity, careful observation, and an imagination so playful that it flirted with fantasy. So like I said, I know very little about Da Vinci. I just know he did invent something. He was a famous painter and he invented a couple inventions. And I know him from, he was a character in Ever After. He was invited to France. And there's a joke in the line when Prince Henry meets him for the first time and realizes who he is, and he's talking about how great he is, how impressed he is, and how he can't wait for him to meet his father and persuade him that times have changed and this is the modern world of that time period. And he says jokingly, Da Vinci says jokingly, Michelangelo was stuck under a ceiling in Rome, and that refers to his painting, Michelangelo in his painting on the Sistine Chapel, painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. So I thought that's funny. That was a funny moment, a funny little line. And in that one, Danielle sees one of his inventions, and she uses it, she plays with it, because she becomes friends with Da Vinci along with Henry, and he paints a portrait of her, which I don't know if that portrait is real or not, but and then of course there's the Da Vinci Code by Dan Brown, which is based on a little religious historical theory on if Jesus was. The debate is, was Jesus divine or a man, and how he might have produced an heir. And how Da Vinci comes into play is there are clues in Da Vinci's paintings and everything. So that, I know people take issue with how Dan Brown writes women is not great, and there's a lot of issues with that, but the premise itself is fun. and the whole mystery and conspiracy theory. So his paintings are brought up in that movie, or play a significant role in that story. So but I thought this would be really fun to read, and I have been to Venice before. Years ago, we took a Mediterranean cruise, and our ship docked in Venice, so we spent the weekend in Venice. I even got a mask there, but we did not spend a lot of time there, just the weekend. I remember getting a lot of gelato and walking up a lot of steps and it being very warm. I remember it being fun. I would like to go back though, because it's been so long. But I already also want to go back to London too. But first we want to go. And what I love is that this one has the paintings in color. And sometimes paperbacks, because color is expensive, so often the paperbacks the pictures are in black and white, while the hardback has the color pictures. Because, they're already spending a lot of money anyway, so on the hardback. But I guess because these are paintings, it would make more sense. You could really show the painting off. Like, it would make more sense to have the painting in color, even in a paperback version of the book. So that is my recent book haul, and then I did place a Thrift Books order, but I don't have it, obviously. So like I said, I want to do hopefully I'll be able to have an update for you guys when that comes in, and I can, have an update and haul those books, because I don't want to just do a video where I haul the books, because that will be a really short video. I know you guys probably wouldn't mind, but like I said, I feel self-conscious about showing you every time, because I'm like, are you guys judging me and thinking, I buy too many books? Again, in my mind, I still feel like I'm not as bad as some people are, but anyway, so I want to be able to talk about something other than the books I've hauled, especially because it's only 3 books, so, even though that's normally what I get anyway, so. Okay, I'm done. I'm gonna shut up now, and I hope you guys liked the second part of the video, and you liked the first part, which was the update, bookish update. So I will talk to y'all later. I hope you're enjoying your reading, and goodbye.